moment, just all those print-offs from the plan for Life After College, be sure to bring your Section A, because I'm going to check them on everybody. Oh, next, Chris, Isaac, your TA had something.
Okay, I know a lot of you have emailed Dr. Norwood about homework 10 and 11 having the grade book, and some of you have it in there and some of you don't. That's because me and Kara split it up, and she did it, but I haven't done it yet.
I didn't go together.
Yeah. Okay, so the way that homework was done is it was all opinion based. So if you did it, you got 100 for it. So if you don't have it in the grade book, but you did the homework, just assume it's 100, and I promise I'm going to get to it eventually. I'm sorry it's taken me a while. But I know, I'm bad, I'm sorry. But stop emailing Dr. Norwood because it's not his fault if they're not in there, it's mine. So if you have questions about it, email me. 13? Probably. Yeah. Yep, 13 as well, apparently.
What about your research? How's that going?
That's going well.
Yeah. You gonna tell us how that ended though, with our letters?
How it ended?
Yeah.
You know what? We should, towards the end of the semester, Chris is going to give a lecture on behavioral economics, and maybe you'll include a little stuff about what you found.
Yeah.
From the research. That's a good idea.
There we go. You'll find out then.
Remember, for this, it's going to be clickers. It's going to be very similar to last time. You can have your notes out, calculators, anything, except don't talk to each other. There's going to be, I'm experimenting with something. I just want to try this and see what happens. I've got the timer set on it. And for the longer questions, I've got 45 seconds to answer. For the shorter questions, I've got 30 seconds to answer. So be sure to pay attention to the clock. If you don't think you know the answer and the clock's running out, just make sure you put in some answer. Remember, you dropped 4 now. Yeah. I'm just waiting a little while for the people who just got here to get everything ready. You'd probably rather have the lights on to see a clicker better, wouldn't you? Raise your hand if you'd like the lights on. Okay. The first 2 questions are going to be the questions where you enter a number. And then hit OK. Even though the questions are going to be very similar, pay attention to the words as well. For instance, if I said, in the ones we did last time, if I said something increases, make sure that on the new question it hasn't changed to decrease. But don't just look at changes in numbers, look at changes in words. Okay. Let the train wreck begin. What I'll do, I'll put the question up, I'll read the question. When I'm done reading the question, then I'll start the timer. If the price of a product falls from 13.5 to 10.8, what is the percent change in price? State answer as a percentage between 0 and 1. If, and only if, you have many decimals round to 2 decimal places. That doesn't mean that you're supposed to have lots of decimal places. And this one has 45 seconds. 5 seconds left. This one, it shows the answer at the bottom as being negative 0.2. Number 2. Suppose the demand elasticity for a product is negative 0.2. If price falls 20%, what is the percent change in quantity demanded? State answer as a percentage between 0 and 1. If you have many decimals, round to 2 decimal places. 45 seconds. Price falls, quantity is going to go up. The answer was 0.04. Number 3, I think this one is 30 seconds. An elastic demand has elasticity that is blank, negative 1, greater than, equal to, or less than. 25 seconds. Please don't talk while the homework's out. I know most of you are cheating, but it's no way for me to tell. Unless I eavesdrop and y'all will fall away. Y'all, I know what y'all are saying. And you should be ashamed of yourself. Good. 4. Because demand curves are downward sloping curves, the elasticity of demand is always negative, less than negative 1 or greater than 1, positive, or it holds. 20 seconds. Negative. Always negative. Number 5. The following demand curve in the graph below appears to have a blank demand, elastic, inelastic, or impossible to tell. 20 seconds. Inelastic. Good. Number 6. A higher elasticity, and by that I mean a larger absolute value of the elasticity or a more negative number, indicates consumers are blank, sensitive to price changes. More, less, or equally. Thus, elasticity is a measure of consumer blank to price changes. C cannot be a correct answer. 20 seconds. Good. More. Very good. Number 7, if there are 5 brands of eggs, all very similar to each other in quality and price, and then the price of one of those brands, but only one, jumps high, consumers will be highly or only mildly sensitive to this price change because there are many or few substitutes for a single brand of eggs. 45 seconds here. Highly sensitive to the price change because there are many substitutes. Number 8. If the price of all eggs, every single variety and brand of eggs, rise at the same time, consumers will be highly or only mildly sensitive to these price changes because there are many or few substitutes for eggs. 45 seconds. D's correct answer, very good. Thus, we conclude the demand for eggs in general is elastic or inelastic, while the demand for a single variety of eggs is elastic or inelastic. 45 seconds. Good. Number 10. Suppose that all egg producers are forced to increase their animal welfare standards, causing their production costs to rise and supply to decrease. Given that the demand for all eggs is inelastic, this will increase price will be a little or a lot, and decrease quantity will be a little or a lot. Same thing as asking what if egg producers were taxed. 45 seconds. Very good. Increases price a lot, and quantity only a little, as this graph shows. Supply decreases, price goes up a lot, quantity goes down a little. That's the end. TAs are now going to hand out a handout for the rest of you. You know, teaching college, it's difficult because just the act of coming here and lecturing is really quite easy, but actually getting to learn a lot and like the class is quite hard. And the challenges with this, it's not like high school where you spend a lot of time with the teacher. I only see you, a few times a week. I'm expected to cover a whole range of topics because you're human, just like professors. You have a limited attention span. I don't want to listen to anybody for an hour and 15 minutes. And well, that kind of makes it such that college ends up being lots and lots of lectures and some homeworks, sometimes ridiculous number of readings that are not met, and then these short bursts of actual activities and studying for a test. And it's actually really hard to get students to learn things and retain knowledge. And I want you to imagine, I'm going to ask you about this in some of the labs. How do you think you'd like the class if it was organized a little differently? Suppose that instead of a lot of DQL homework, you did most of your homeworks like on clickers during class time. Such that, and maybe even you have a lecture and you immediately follow the lecture with some of those questions. Just think about that. I'm going to ask you about it in lab. I've got a feeling you don't like it, but I want to hear it from you. What we're going to be talking about now is this thing called market power. And I'm going to tell you a quick story to give you an idea of the goals I have for this. I was raised in South Carolina. My father had a friend who had never been to the beach, and so he'd never seen the ocean. And one day they were driving and they happened to go about 10 miles from the beach. So my dad said, you know what, we're going to go to the beach. I want you to see the ocean. This guy was like 50 or so, never seen the ocean. So he took him there, and the guy went out on the beach, and he looked out at the ocean, and he just kind of said, well, I thought it'd be bigger than this. How could it look bigger than it is?
From a satellite view.
Yeah, and my daddy always tells stories. It's very funny. It's one of my favorite stories. And, well, the person, he didn't understand much about how a round world works and the horizon, and he had no context to imagine what a bigger ocean would look like. It would look exactly the same. The Atlantic Ocean was, covered all the way of Europe into Russia. It would still look the same from Myrtle Beach to South Carolina. He just didn't have the right context to think about it. And what we're doing in these lectures on market power, and you'll probably agree, economics in general, I don't have, this isn't chemistry where I have a lot of answers. In chemistry, this reacts with this, and you get this compound. Here we're dealing with very complex subjects that are affected by thousands of things, and I cannot tell you exactly how the way the world works. I cannot tell you whether Monsanto is good or bad, or whether the fact that there's only really 4 people who buy live cattle, whether that's good or bad, but I can help you think about it. And so we're going to be talking about this thing, market power. This is something you're going to be dealing with your whole life, because most of the products you consume are produced by really big corporations. And from some of your papers, you understand that there's some good and bad things that come with that. We get our stuff from big corporations for a reason. They're generally really good at what they do, but the power they have lets them do bad things as well. We all use Google all the time. Google has almost a monopoly on internet searches. If I asked you whether that's good or bad, most of you would say that it's good because Google's awesome and the other ones are not. But in other cases, if I told you Monsanto and one other company has most of all the GM seeds, almost all the soybean, corn seeds that's planted in the U.S., whether that's good or bad, I'm not going to get everybody raising their hand saying that's good. Things get a little different. When you were young, you might, if you ever glanced at the newspaper, you might remember Microsoft being taken to court over antitrust issues. There's always antitrust things in the paper. If you ever become the best way to tell when you've made it in the private sector, when you are wildly successful, is if you are taken to court by the government for antitrust. I'm being very serious. If you are wildly successful like Google, you are going to dominate everybody else. You are going to be the big daddy or big mommy in the market, and you will violate antitrust regulations and you will be taken to court. Because the Department of Justice currently, this is how they think about antitrust. They have to, because this is kind of what the laws make them do. Monopoly is bad. If any firm has a really, really large market share, they are a monopoly, they are bad. Therefore, any wildly successful person is essentially a criminal. Now, we're only going to take the criminals that the public doesn't care about the court. You know, a lot of economists think one of the main reasons the government didn't really do much with Google and didn't pursue them all that fervently is because most of us would have said that's ridiculous because we love what Google does. But any other company where we don't actually understand what they do, well, that's a different scenario. Market power. You've all got your handouts now. What we're going to be doing in the next two lectures, we'll talk about market power in general, but I want to concentrate on 3 different cases. Raise your hand if you raise cattle of any kind, cow, calf, feedlot. Okay, lots of people. Raise your hand if your family owns or a father or mother operate a feedlot, or so on. Where's your feedlot? How many buyers of cattle do you have? You have a lot of people who buy your cattle? No, when Cactus goes to sell that cow. Like Cactus Feeders is a feedlot, right? And then they sell it to beef processors. You know how many? Like 3? So you've got lots of feedlots around here. I don't know how many, but hundreds of them. Some really big ones, some small ones. There's only, sometimes where a feedlot is, there's only one buyer. Sometimes there's 3 or 4. And most of those feedlots are suspicious that they're getting a lower price than they deserve because the other person has nothing to Walmart. Raise your hand if you like Walmart. Raise your hand if you hate Walmart. Whoa. Why do you hate Walmart, Russell, man? Oh, is this going to be a long story?
No, it's like less than a minute. Okay. I was in school. I said
My attention span
my
like
girl
20
needs to
so
go
you
get
can tell I've already
22 shells. They gave her the wrong shells, and since we have a federal no ammunition return policy, I got stuck with crappy shells. Because the guy there didn't know what the difference between Maxi Mag and 22 Magnum.
Well, I am just outraged. And you, I mean, how are you supposed to go out and kill people if you can't get Any other reasons you hate Walmart? You raise your hand pretty high.
Yeah, I don't the atmosphere of Walmart, and I don't like that Walmart's getting my money when I buy things from Walmart.
Oh, yeah.
You can literally take anything back. You can take stuff that Walmart does not sell back.
You can.
A friend that was a manager, someone brought a riding lawnmower in. A brand no Walmart sells anywhere. The manager was like, well, figure out a comparable product and give them that much money.
15 years ago, certainly 20 years ago, Walmart didn't sell many groceries. Now they sell a lot. There's a lot of people who don't like them because of that.
They put everybody out of business.
Yeah, they put a lot of people out of business.
Consumers put those people out there.
Both.
We put those
Y'all are
people
saying
out
the
there.
same thing.
We give them.
I don't give Walmart my money.
You don't have much options, do you? A lot of you talked about sugar, the cane sugar producers in Florida, in your paper. Well, they got their market power by very different means. Walmart and beef processors, they came in and drove out competitors. You might say they earned it. Consumers gave them consent to get bigger. Sugar producers, that's a little different. So those are the three cases we're looking at. Raise your hand if you're a stocker or a cow-calf producer. Anytime you talk about market power, and this is something that if anybody's going to law school, this is the kind of thing you'll probably need more than anybody. If you're a business and you go to Fort Antitrust, you'll need to know these terms. These are the terms that are used to describe different types of market power out there. From monopoly to monopsony. You're probably familiar with the term monopoly, but probably not monopsony, unless you took an AP Econ class in high school. So, what I want to do first is I want to go through these 5 different things and talk about just some examples. If I ask you for an example of monopoly, what's something that comes to mind?
Walmart.
Walmart? They have monopoly in what? Almost everything people buy.
Convenience.
Yeah.
Price.
The Rockefellers what? What do they sell? Oh.
Ticketmaster.
Ticketmaster.
20-something?
Here on the campus.
20-something.
Store.
The little convenience store we have to
I don't think that's a monopoly.
BT.
Yeah, well, it depends on, I guess if you say, okay, right here in this location, there's only one store in this location, they have a monopoly. You can say that. But the property stuff they sell, can you buy it elsewhere? Relative convenience?
Like the model and a half to Walmart.
Oh, it's one of the on-campus things. Gotcha. Yeah, kind of like you've already committed to spend there.
And the prices are outrageous, like $6 for a box of cereal.
Actually, $2.88 for a big box of pizza.
Whoa! Whoa, you better come prepared to this class.
Tax rate.
I want us to write, so you've got some room where you can write some notes here. And I've got 3 monopolies I want you to write. One I want you to write is Ticketmaster. They don't have an exact monopoly. Sometimes you can get concert tickets through other means. But for the most part, for concerts, for major tickets, it's my impression that they are mostly a monopoly. Y'all disagree with that, or? I do. What about Can, who's up? To what extent do they, and I'm really asking this, do they compete with Ticketmaster for like major concerts? They have all the concerts?
Bank of Oklahoma, the big center or whatever, the convention center.
Uh-huh.
They do all the Oklahoma City Thunder games, Dark Brook, all those things.
Okay, well let's write this. Ticketmaster, then put in parentheses before StubHub. Okay, before StubHub.
Ticketmaster actually owns
Oh.
Uh-oh.
And those parentheses where we said before StubHub, right, they own StubHub. Thank you, because I really don't like being wrong. You really saved me on that one. I got Yeah, this guy here is correcting everybody. Price of Kleenex. I like Ticketmaster because there's no law that says that tickets have, they just kind of earned it. It ended up that way. We don't know exactly how they did it. But here's two others where they have their monopoly through some different ways. Let's say Roundup Ready soybean seed. Soybean, the soybean seed, and then it's a different specific type of seed called Roundup, R-O-U-N-D-U-P. Roundup Ready. R-O-U-N-D-U-P. R-E-A-D-Y. Soybean seed. Something that rhymes with Roundup Ready is a pesticide you can spray on anything and it dies, including plants. A lot of people are proposed to their girlfriend by writing "Will you marry me?" using Roundup Ready and grass. See it on the internet, there's lots of it. And so the company Monsanto came up with a Roundup Ready with a different soybean seed where you could plant seeds, the soybean will start growing, and you can throw Roundup all over the field and the soybean just keeps growing. Completely unaffected by Roundup. Anything else in the field, dead. The soybeans, not dead. Made it a lot easier to raise soybeans. And actually cut down on total pesticide use. Good in many ways. You can only buy this from Monsanto because Monsanto has a patent.
Yay.
And so where you've already written, as a monopoly, Roundup Ready soybean, put parentheses, has a patent. But they came up with the technology, they submitted a patent application, and the government said, okay, you and only you can sell this for usually about 14 years, but there's no. And then, of course, write down iPad. We all know iPad only comes from Apple. I'm going to want you to write one thing after the iPad. So you wrote iPad in parentheses if there is no close substitute. You wrote an iPad, then in parentheses if there is no close substitute. iPad, in parentheses, if there is no close substitute. This is important because whether something has a monopoly depends on our perceptions of the substitutes. I think there is no substitute for the iPad. Everything else I've tried just does not work near as well, aren't as near as the apps. But others among you who like the Kindle just as much, Apple has a patent on the iPad, but not that kind of product, because they're close substitutes. And so to write that, so we see that for monopoly, you have to be the single seller of a good with no close substitutes. And sometimes it's not clear whether there are no close substitutes or not. It's something you can argue over. With Roundup Ready, soybean seed, there are no close substitutes. iPad, perhaps. So monopoly is a single seller and lots of buyers. Only one company selling the tickets, selling the Roundup Ready soybeans, selling the iPad, tons of people who want to buy it. Sometimes there are just a few sellers. Not just one seller, a few sellers. And that's when we get oligopoly. And probably for most of the products you buy, it's something close to an oligopoly. Give me an example. You could use guns if you want. Winchester, Remington.
I'll go with Bushmaster.
Okay. Couldn't just say, yeah, those are good, right?
Nah.
Okay.
Not good.
Coke, Pepsi, are they similar products? If you say no, it's not an oligopoly. If you say yes, they're similar products, there's an oligopoly for that kind of drink. For perfect competition, when we did supply and demand, that's a model that is supposed to apply to perfect competition. That's when you have lots of buyers and lots of sellers. Anything come to mind when there's lots of buyers, lots of sellers? Food, cars. It depends on what lots means. Like you can probably count on two hands the number of car sellers. Ford, Honda. Someone said corn. Lots of people selling corn. Generally, lots of people buying corn. Lots of people selling wheat. Lots of people buying wheat. For perfect competition, let's write down corn. Let's write down wheat. Let's write down calves. C-A-L-V-E-S. As we go down here, then we're getting into the opposite of monopoly and oligopoly. Instead of a single seller, you have a single buyer. Or instead of having a few sellers, you have, or many buyers, you have a few buyers. When it comes to oligopoly, where we have just a few buyers and many sellers, we're only going to write down one thing. We want to write down live cattle. Live, like L-I-V-E, and cattle. If you don't know what live cattle are, there's another slide that says that, but these are the big cows that's been fed and they're about to be slaughtered. They have to wait. We're ready to cut them up, make them into meat. And there are lots of different feedlots across the nation. As we're going to see right now, there are only 4. The people who buy the cows and slaughter them, make beef cuts, I call beef processors. 4 of them handle 80% of all the live cattle. And I consider that just a few buyers. And there is a lot of court activity over that kind of thing. And actually, once Obama came to power, one of the first things he did was to say that his administration wanted to look a little more deeply into those market power issues in agriculture. Okay, monopsony. These may be less familiar. Only one buyer, but many sellers. Can you think of any? One buyer, many sellers.
What raw gold?
Raw gold.
Like whenever they take it out of the ground and it's basically powder form, and then they send it to the one buyer, and then that one buyer distributes it to all the jewelry.
I don't think so, because there are probably lots of different mines around the world, and there are probably lots of different companies that take it. You might be talking about like one region.
Yeah, like in one.
But the people who are buying there, if the price gets too high, they would go buy from another region, I guess.
Diamonds done like that with one
Diamonds?
diamond with one seller mostly. There's all the production involved.
De Beers, yeah, you're talking about sellers now, not buyers.
Sellers.
But De Beers has a close to monopoly on diamonds. But I'm thinking monopoly. Yes, sir.
Would be like the government,
For what? Government buying what?
like government contract, okay, then there's multiple companies who get these, to develop technologies that the government can use.
Like an F-15.
Yeah.
There's only one person buying them.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's one I want you to write down. That's an economist's favorite monopsony, NCAA. NCAA. Single buyer of college athletes. NCAA, single buyer of college athletes.
Does the government have like a monopoly and a monopoly on bonds?
On bonds, on U.S. government bonds.
Yeah.
But there are lots of close substitutes for that. So it depends on how you define the product. If you say U.S. government bonds, yes. If you say municipal government bonds in general, no. Now, these market structures say something about prices. And this is how to think about it. You can imagine if you are the only buyer of something, you have a lot of market power, right? Which is why people who go to college to play football, baseball, and I'm concentrating on those athletes because they bring in tons of money to the university. You know, it's been estimated a good football player brings in like $500,000 to their university. So these players are valuable. They're generating lots of money, but until they can go to the pros, there's only one place they can sell their labor, and that one buyer doesn't want to pay much money. And so they get shafted. One way of looking at it. They don't get much money. You know, they get to go to college, but when you compare that to the actual value they generate for the university, very, very low earnings. But then, take a college basketball player, gets very, very little. As soon as they go to the NBA, now there are a few sellers of basketball players. There's only a few people who can really play at the high level. They negotiate very, very, very high salaries. And of the value generated by NBA basketball players, they get most of it, the players themselves. What's that? Yeah. And of course, when you go from one buyer to when you have one seller, if you're the one seller, then you can start to command a high price. What should we do now? Raise your hand if you want me to lecture for 6 more minutes. Raise your hand if you would like to go now. Majority rule.